Here we go. Hi, welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending September 23rd, 2018. This is episode 284. We talk about all things smart building controls. And your co-host and my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only Kenny Smyers, has agreed to come from his meeting with Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who brought Kenny in to consult with him about how they're going to start winning football games, to join us for the show. So, Kenny, thanks for taking time away from the Steelers.
Well, you know what, Eric, it was tough because, I mean, there's hell to pay out there. We sucked from A to Z. No special teams. We couldn't kick the ball. We couldn't receive the ball. Penalty. Can't catch the ball to the right. We score a lot of points, but we can't stop them when after we do score the points. So hats off to Kansas City. They whooped us fair and square on our home field. I was at the game. I was embarrassed. I had a friend come in from Italy. Remember, you were coming back. My friend just left almost the same day. And by the way, before I forget, let's transition. The hat. I'm digging the hat. Tell me about that Stromquist and Company hat. The new. I see the red and blue indicating heating and cooling. The cycle of life.
Yeah. Well, you know, we dropped a bunch of money upgrading our website, and when we did, we got a new logo.
Right.
And I wish I could say anything to do with it, but it was really Rob Allen and Chuck Chittick and the rest of the team that
Cool.
did. And we kind of studied everybody's website to see what we thought really worked and look for areas where we could improve upon it. So the hat comes with it. So
I like it. I got to get one. I don't have one yet.
If you order something from us, just say you want a hat like Eric's got.
I will.
It's kind of like everyone in our company went and did this incredible stuff, and I got the hat. But thank you, man. I appreciate that. And dude, you know, real quick, we got some exciting stuff coming up, as you know, around AHR. We got the Control Trends Award. We got the AHR show, and our friends at Johnson Controls and Penn Basso are having a celebration. 100th year anniversary of Penn Controls. It's going to be at the Georgia Aquarium. We've had an event there before. It's going to be spectacular. And Kenny, if things go the way I think they're going to go, and that's going to happen the day before the Control Trends Awards, which I think is at Saturday, you and I might just be recording our 300th episode of Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings Video Pass and Podcast at that event. And it's kind of significant because if you remember, I think we did the 200th episode at their national sales meeting in Nashville. So we seem to be in rhythm with JCI.
It's extraordinary. And, that was many, many years ago. But, we did the 200th right there from the ABCS channel meeting. And it's quite a venue. And then I'm looking forward to the aquarium. I saw you did a major event down there, 2 years ago, I think it was.
It was spectacular. We tried to book the aquarium for the Control Trends Awards, and JCI, I think, it beat us to the point, or somebody else had beat us to the point. That booked up really quickly. But it is absolutely spectacular. So reach out to your local Johnson Controls Penn rep and say, hey, I want to go to the Control Trends Awards, but the day before I want to go to your 100-year anniversary and celebration.
I'm looking forward to it. And they always have a very we love history. And if you were at the Control Trends Awards last year in Chicago, you'll know that we inducted Johnson into our Control Trends Hall of Fame. And the remarkable, they came up with the first thermostat, and we just, the CGNA meeting it was at, the glass thermostat was one of the featured products that Johnson had there. And what an amazing thermostat that is. I mean, that's a Nest killer in my opinion. And it was Nest set the stage, got the, set the first world record in the thermostat 100-yard dash. But since then, there's been more Olympic trials, and we've seen Ecobee take, the race, won first place several times. We've seen Honeywell come back with the Lyric and the Red Link, and then the glass thermostat that Johnson put together is an amazing thermostat, and we have a post on that. So maybe we'll put a link into it. But more importantly, is that they're going to differentiate between a commercial version and a residential version. So it's pretty impressive stuff.
Very, very, very cool. And I think, the Control Trends nomination ballots are going to be coming out later this week. And if I'm not mistaken, we have the, what do they call it, the thermostat of the year, the light commercial product of the year. We'll get the verbiage right on that. But that Glass Stat and Honeywell and Nest, and there's so many really sort of devices that fit in that category now, and they're doing a great job. But before we do that, buddy, we got some shout outs.
We sure do. And this is another fun part of the show where we can talk about some birthdays. Let's congratulate first Josh Felprin. Happy birthday. Guy looks younger every year. I think he's got to be, 32 now?
He's older than me, man.
No,
he's taking those young drugs. Well,
anyhow, keep up the good work.
And taking his vitamins.
He's doing real well. He's leading the way for Siemens.
Happy birthday, Josh.
We have Lisa Payne shared a post about ISA and how they can help you save time and money. Matt Toll was promoted to technology manager at Control Concepts in Arizona. Doug Bartholomew, he's celebrating 2 years at Tesseron Sensors. And then we have one more. We have Daryl Fista. Happy birthday. So thank you to the Control Trends community. Keep those the messages coming. And we got some more to look forward to next week. We'll save them for the next show.
And we got a great guest coming up here in just a few minutes. But Kenny, let's talk about some of the things that happened last week in Control Land.
Well, yeah, Eric. The industry doesn't seem to slow down, and the best part about the show is when we get to talk about and celebrate new products and solutions that really do find ways to, again, we're our two big themes, and I think you mentioned it later on in the show here, where we see reducing the cost of deployment, taking technology and using technology to reduce the cost of taking a solution and putting it work, deploy it. And then two, when you do have an opportunity and you can add value, you will always be an important player, and everybody's, anybody that makes any kind of decisions is going to look for the best value for the buck. And if you're really and truly tailoring your operations to provide value at every turn, you're going to always be popular and having that phone ring or the internet connections to come out and do work for them. But the products are always important. So the first post we have is by ACI and the need to monitor CO2 in greenhouses, and we know that one of the biggest, fastest growing markets in the world, and certainly in North America, is the medicinal marijuana facilities. So that we've seen some great products come out from EasyIO to do the controls. We've seen Blue Ridge Technologies applying the lights. But what do we need to do when we want to see things grow? So you control the humidity, you control the lighting, but you also have to control the CO2 for plants. So this was a post about monitoring CO2 with ACI's ASense GH, which is a greenhouse, but I'm sure it can be used in many different applications. But during the day, greenhouse plants use CO2, water, and light energy from the sun and/or supplemental lighting to aid photosynthesis. Maintaining optimal levels of CO2 increases the speed of photosynthesis and growth, and that gives us maximum yield. So for all these greenhouse applications and medicinal marijuana applications,
CO2 is like steroids for pot.
I did you do that. I always did it too. Because I'm looking at a picture of a big bud on a marijuana plant. I'm thinking,
that's on steroids. So Barry Gordon and the team at ACI, man, they do great sensors. So we also have there's a link there on the site, so you can get the specification sheets, submittal data if you need to submit on anything. So it's right there. But again, congratulations to ACI. They just keep on keeping on.
That's certainly not the scrawny stuff we had back in our day, huh, Eric?
I don't know what you're talking about, Kenny. I can either confirm, deny, or I don't even understand that last statement. So let's move on to the next post.
Well, I love that. That was one of the best things I ever learned in the Air Force. I can neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons. So next up, we have Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls Con is hitting the road, taking it to the street. So we had just mentioned about some big things happening at Johnson. Prior to the AHR and prior to the Control Trends Awards, they're going to have a 100th anniversary of Penn Controls, which is incredible and well done, Johnson. But this is the rubber hitting the road, and of course that's a pun. But the reality is that the road show had been a very important aspect back in the day of taking technology, taking the mountain to Muhammad versus bringing everybody into one central place. I think this is a great way of reiterating technology and going after different metropolitan areas where you have a large assembly of relevant contractors, distributors, and engineers. But just to give you a quick synopsis on it, the roadshow provides opportunities for attendees to listen, see, and experience the control products offering from Johnson Controls, while also providing a hands-on training, instruction, and certification in the product areas below, which are Facility Explorer. That's the main BAS application, and it's formidable, very formidable. They're going to talk about IP controllers, custom applications, wireless labs, map gateway, and the FX appliance enhancements. Verisys. This is a very exciting concept where it is for the race to the small space style. This is for light commercial and small, say 20, 30,000 square feet and down. It gives contractors a real play. You don't have to be a genius. It's very plug and play. It's very well supported, and they got great training for it. We talked about refrigeration products. Anybody out there knows what an A19 ABC-24 is. I mean, it's probably the most incredible remote controller, temperature controller. I remember going to a Johnson meeting once where they had the sunsets of products, and they were going to say that they were going to keep these certain products alive for this many years. And the only product that had been there since, I think, the 50s, and it had no sunset date, was that remote temperature controller. The A19.
No, it is. And, Hall & Oates wrote that song about it, A19, right?
Yeah.
That's sure Aretha Franklin. She don't remember the Queen of Soul. You know that song, A19.
Well, poor Aretha. She's no longer with us.
But dude, they do a great job, and I'm sure they'll be stopping by Stromquist, and every time they brought a road show through, they do a fabulous job with it. And you're right, it's a great venue, a great format, a great way to get it done. So
right,
cool stuff there, buddy. What do we have up next?
Next up, Eric, we have the Iodium tees up to take off with Series B financing. And this is a fun post because you talk about people being successful. Huh? Well, I mean, these are big numbers. I used to play the lottery. I don't think I've kind of ignored it now because it wasn't a good plan. It wasn't paying off.
Well, it's our friend Ron Victor, who's been on Control Trends quite a bit, and we always like to look at Ron, say to the victor, go the spoils. And in this particular case, there was a lot of investment in his company, Iodium. I mean, people along the lines of Honeywell was one of the investors. So,
well, this is big too. This is $22 million, and it's from, like you said, led by March Capital Partners and supported by GE Ventures, Honeywell Ventures, JC2 Ventures, and Juniper Ventures. It validates the strength of Iodium solutions, and they're digging in now. They're going into the industrial Fortune 500 space worldwide. So well done, Ron and the team.
Well, look at them. Speaking of Honeywell, Kenny, I think there's still time to register for the Honeywell Momentum meeting that's coming up here in October down in Orlando. So if you're a Honeywell partner and you haven't registered, you might want to get on that.
Well, I think you might have missed it. Yesterday, the 21st was, I believe, the last day. They might make exceptions, but
just tell them Kenny told you it was okay. Just say Ken Smyers told me.
Say Big E sent me.
Yeah, the Big E sent you. The Big E sent you. Either just tell them Control Trends sent you. Said
well,
listen, before we get to the guests, let's hit our next post.
Alrighty. Well, the KMC Commander, the easy way to turn a BAS system into an IoT platform, and this, of course, is just a good post because you got Tim Vogel, eSolutions, TJ Terrell show how easy it is to take an existing BAS system and turn it into an IoT platform, installing the KMC Commander. As you can see in this video, it's well thought out. It's easy to install. So if you're looking for more BA systems features and you want to upgrade an existing or maybe an older BAS system, the KMC Commander is a viable option. It's a very good option.
And I think KMC, that Commander, fits into so many categories, Kenny, because again, it's a solution, a race to the small space solution. And as we talk about it, one of the cool things about the industry is controls. It used to be you used to have a big system, a lot of points to be able to pay for it because it was so expensive. Has now been scaled down, and that Commander is something that can go in a 10,000 foot building or in a 100,000 foot building and be chained together. So it's a great product. And Tim Vogel is doing the marketing over at KMC now and does a great job with that. So hopefully we'll get Tim on the show soon.
Well, yeah, and Tim's a great marketer. We always talk about how many great products there are and how many great systems there are, and how do you differentiate between systems? It's the story being told, it's the marketing. So we always feel compelled to recognize some of the great marketeers and guys that make it look easy. But marketing and telling a story is a tough thing to do, and I think Tim Vogel does it as well as anybody out there.
He does as well as anybody. And speaking of stories that have been yet to be told, great stories, mystery stories, and what makes a great story is something incredible that hasn't been discovered yet. And Kenny, we got one of those teed up and ready to go. How about introducing this week's guest?
Love to. We have Daryl Clayson. He's the manager of Loytech Americas, and Daryl's going to tell us some really, really interesting stuff about what's going on at Loytech. Welcome to the show, Daryl.
Welcome, Daryl.
Well, appreciate it. Pleasure to be here.
Well, glad to have you, and especially a pleasure to be here because we know where you are. Daryl is down in Costa Rica, one of the most beautiful places in the world. So the fact that you're taking your time to come in here and talk to the Control Trends community is very, very much appreciated. But for our listeners who might not know, I mean, Kenny and I talk a lot about Loytech being one of the best kept secrets in North America. I don't think that's true around the world, but tell our listeners about Loytech and what you guys do.
Yeah, Loytech's a very interesting company. They are a company that designs and manufactures products in-house, even down into the chipset area for design. So it's quite unique company. The history of Loytech, I always describe to people, is the Cisco of building automation. So if you were a major manufacturer and you wanted to pass data in your network or very large networks, you use Loytech. And since then, of course, we branched into providing touch panels, IP controllers, I/O devices, gateways. We're very multilingual. You look at any product we have, and it speaks at least 3 languages, if not more. So Loytech's an interesting company with the IP power behind it. And I think moving ahead, something that I find really interesting is now Loytech is bringing in this mystery IoT into building automation, and we found some very practical ways to bring IoT information and turn it into building information and work back and forth.
Wow. Well, Daryl, real quick, let's get some stable data because Loytech's not your first company. You've been around in the Americas of your career. I mean, I think at one point in time you were actually an integrator. So I think you're kind of uniquely qualified to sort of maybe talk about, for our listeners out there might not know kind of where we have been in general as an industry with building automation controls, where we sort of are now, where you see us now, and where you sort of see us going. And, I have to sort of preface that by saying every time we've interviewed you, you guys seem like you've been way ahead of everybody else of what you guys are doing, but sort of where the building automation controls industry has been, where it is now, and where you see it going.
Sure. Well, obviously, we started out with the field buses, and I think when I was younger in the industry, we had the open protocol initiatives. So you had your BACnet and your LawnWorks, and at this point in time, people started to get into the industry and really expand what they could do. And this was fantastic. And then everything was talking about communication and integration and system integration. And now all of a sudden we get to this world, I think about the last 5 years, when I first started talking about Loytech IP controllers. Nobody was interested in IP controllers. Why do I want an IP VAV? Why do I want an IP air handler? And I think in the last 3 years, this is flipped, and now everybody realizes the information that's able to be obtained from IP devices and multilingual IP devices, and now the interesting thing to me is we're in the next frontier. And this is the frontier where we move into IP devices that talk to anything. And it's not just building components, it's for instance, we have controllers you could set up that your Sonos music system is talking, that your proprietary lighting system, as long as it has a JavaScript interface, is available. So you can walk into a conference room and have a controller. This controller can interface with your Google Calendar, that's scheduling that room. It can play the music that's in the room. It can enable the projector. Now all of a sudden it's not a VAV controller or a water source heat pump controller. It's an IP integration device. And that's where we are right now.
It's exciting.
Well, Daryl, and I think to that point, you made a nice reference, but the IoT devices, what's the standard that you guys are, I think that when I think of Loytech, I think of an engineer-centric company. You guys were always, you had a European advancement that didn't have like a puzzle piece. It didn't have a fit in North America yet. But now that America, I think, is more inclined to take on this technology. And what is the standard when we talk about IoT? I think you have a 61499 that I'm on your website, so I take a look at.
Yeah.
So you guys are leading the way through this IoT standard.
Yes, so Lloydtech has open standards. This is for the communication technology, so we're open protocol in, open protocol out for many years. Then, of course, also on the programming interface, it started out with an industrial standard, IEC 61131, which allowed people to program a device in many different ways: ladder, function block, structured text, mix, match. The extension of the 61131 standard is 61499. And this is an object-oriented standard. And it's fascinating because what they wanted to do with this standard is get away from that you needed, the program's divorced from the I/O. And this is a concept very hard for people to understand. So I make a program, I make a graphical representation or description for that program, and that goes into a 61499 container called a CAD, or a composite automation type. This is basically an IP construct, and I can take this thing and I can put it in one or many controllers or associate IP devices very quickly with this. So it's one thing to have an IoT device. An IoT device is something that allows access on the internet, but it's quite another thing to put these things together in such a way to create an integrated building. And Lloydtech is leveraging this standard. And the best thing I could liken it to in the Americas that people will understand is maybe if you look at BIM or Revit. Specifically from Autodesk. And they are using objects and instantiations and these things on how they're modeling and putting together buildings. And what Lloydtech is doing is adopting a control standard that does it in the same way. So
outstanding. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I know that was probably a little bit off to the side question, but as I want to present, or as we want to present Lloydtech to the control trends community, I just wanted to establish how good you guys are at this, and how now that you come up with products that really fit the we call it the race to the small space, taking the delivering the most value with the least expense deployed cost. That's essentially the game, and you guys are coming into it with a flurry of new products, not new to you, but new to us in North America.
Well, yeah, and I think, Kenny, we got to further sort of phrase that by when I was looking at a video early 2016 when we interviewed Daryl at the AHR show. So I think we got to start with some of those products, because those products are going to be new to our control trends community. So, for example, Daryl, you guys were the first people I heard that use the term smart sensor. Talk about smart sensor and why that's important in Lloydtech's approach to it.
Yeah, so we have smart sensors, and really that's and I see quite a few manufacturers now have gotten into this game, that you have something on the wall that needs to be a coordination interface. So you start to have systems like VRF systems in the building, and you have a limited access. So what you want to do is get on the wall, and when you get on the wall, you're not just controlling the localized HVAC system, but that smart wall sensor will have a lighting interface, lighting buttons, or actually buttons that can be assigned to whatever you need to do in that space. So you see maybe some occupancy, some lighting control, of course, the standard HVAC things like CO2 and humidity levels. But this sensor on the wall needs to be able to interface not just through a field bus connection, but maybe an IP connection, a Wi-Fi connection, and an ocean connection. It needs to be more of a collection point in the room. Some manufacturers are doing this a little different. Instead of putting it in the wall, some are doing it in the ceiling. Lloydtech concentrates mostly on the wall inside the door when you walk in. So for us, that smart sensor may be just a wall module, a very small wall module, or it might go up to like a 7-inch Elvis. So that's a very sleek glass touch panel, and this can be whatever it needs to be on the wall. And at that point, you have the IoT interface. So if you would put that, for instance, in the conference room, the display is anything you want to make it. So it's going to do your HVAC, you're going to do the artistic lighting and the scene setting in the room, and you are going to have a projector interface. You are going to have audio interface. And at that point, then that will migrate to where that's accessible directly to your local mobile phone. So now all the components are in place. When a person walks in a space, they can locally go up and do something to a panel or a smart sensor that's on the wall, or they can interface directly locally with a Wi-Fi connection to their mobile phone.
No,
Pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, it is awesome, Kenny. And I got to say, I'll put a link to the video because it was 2016, and you can actually just see how beautiful these displays are. Stromquist is a Lloyd-Tech distributor, and I got to tell you, your touch screens are just absolutely, all your products are extraordinary, but particularly we get people asking about your touch screens and those sorts of interfaces. So you guys.
Well, the Elvis is pretty cool. That was a cool name. I don't know who came up with that, but you know, because I'm sure it's like L for lawn and VIS for vision. So lawn vision, but Elvis.
Lloyd-Tech, always L is for Lloyd-Tech. So it's Lloyd-Tech. It is officially. I need to. Yes, I know your angle there, but I'm going to officially say it's Lloyd-Tech Visualization.
Oh, okay.
But take a look at the splash screen when it boots up, but it's Lloyd-Tech Visualization.
Good. Thanks for. Well, you know, we've sold a bunch of them, and they're very, very high quality. And I think they set the standard. I mean, that was like when you wanted the best and you wanted the most quality, you went with the Lloyd-Tech Elvis because. You know, there's some stuff out there you can get in from China that's, you know, just it'll meet whatever, but then how long does it last? And really, it doesn't work as well as some of these very engineered products. So if you went with the Elvis, you knew for sure it was going to work. And the support you guys do is great. So I'm all over the place because I'm looking at your site and I'm excited because you've got some incredible products. I mean, I did not realize that you're an LSTAT network thermostat. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the LSTAT is a line that we're starting to advance, and it has multiple functions, but it also has thermostat functionality. And that device is the base LSTAT is actually a more low-level communication device. It has an NFC interface to link for web apps, but it also communicates as standard Modbus device. So it's not a Lloyd-Tech only device. So you can take that LSTAT and everything on the screen is accessible. So if you had a third-party controller or application, or you were doing fan control or maybe large fans in warehouse, you can actually take that LSTAT and leverage it in your own system. So
and you said the near-field communication. Explain to that how that would interface. So we've bumped into like some manufacturers now have like KMC, for instance. You don't have to power anything up. You can program it just by being close and download a program. So
so we have we leverage it in the case of the LSTAT. We leverage it that you can have web link URLs. So all Lloyd-Tech devices have the ability for custom HTML5 graphics. And so what we do with the NFC link on an LSTAT is we allow you to throw the link in there, and then that can be to any series of graphics or graphical projects that you want to augment your LSTAT with. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so in VAV, it's kind of neat because in a VAV system, if the LSTAT's on the wall, the balancer goes up with his phone, and when he puts the phone against the LSTAT, it brings up the calibration balancer sequence for that room. So he gets the room name, and then he can do his calibration balance check test. He doesn't need any special software. He doesn't need an app. He just has a web link.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Well, you know, a good friend of ours in the industry, you know him, Scott Cochran, said, you know, that their whole business model is based on, you know, lowering the cost and creating value at the same time. And I think one of the ways you do that is through consolidation. And it's kind of exciting because in 2016, we saw your VAV control, which was just absolutely marvelous. And again, we'll have a link. You can go see that. But now it seems like you guys have incorporated the controller in such a way that it's multifunction.
Yes. So in particular, the product in 2016, Lea Bear product, that product is morphing into something that I would call a room automation product. And room automation, I think, is a bad translation from a European term. I would describe it more as area control. And what this means is that you put devices throughout a space, and they control whatever is in its area. So, for instance, in the case of a Lea Bear, I mean, it's capable to take in card readers or biometric readers. It can do VAV, lighting output. So we really capture things that are in an area, and whatever might be in that area, we control it. If the area changes, and this is where this cloud control and this IoT interface comes into play, we can dynamically reconfigure that area because the controllers know everything that's in it. So if there is a tenant improvement and a wall is put in place between a couple of rooms, we just say there's a wall here, and then the segments work together or they work separately. So I think when you get these multi-function controllers, now if I'm an electrician, I ran a lighting system, an HVAC guy ran an HVAC system, an access guy ran an access system, and now we we run an Ethernet system that does all three functions. So that lowers the overall installation costs, especially on new construction. And it has benefits on the backside, because now I have graphics that are distributed throughout the building. There's no single point of failure. And if you're going to use Ethernet or Wi-Fi mesh in the controllers, now I have redundant communication paths. So even in field bus networks, if you had a failure in an MSTP network at midstream, you lose everything downstream. Maybe you lose the entire field bus. But now we have these mesh networks and wired redundant loop networks. The communication hardly goes down. It's almost always up. We have capabilities on mesh networking with switches that you can have up to 6 switches, and 5 of them can fail, and your whole building can still run in some fashion. So it's amazing what you can do when you get into the IP and get into this area control.
Did you guys get that from the aircraft industry? Because
I can't answer where our dream team gets that from, but they're just they're very good.
That was exactly right. So I mean, I remember F4s when I got my first briefing on those. They could lose this part of the aircraft, and it could be taken over by this other controller. And if it went down, there was like 6 redundancies, and so that you have to assume that's going to happen. So it's a marvelous technical achievement, I think, to bring that down to a room controller level.
Well, yeah, I got to ask Daryl, because I mean, you got a dream team. They're sitting around, they're thinking about things. I mean, so they're going out in the future and thinking about how can we make a great network even better. I mean, is that sort of how the philosophy of how you guys roll as a company? I mean, is it like, are you guys always thinking down the road? You mentioned the dream team. They're over in Vienna listening to beautiful music, drinking cappuccinos, and creating all kinds of really cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll have to say, over the years, I've been with Lloydtech as of this September for 10 years. And what surprised me, being an integrator before that, is working with Lloydtech. And they have this wonderful balance. Over 50% of the people in Vienna are R&D. That's a crazy number for a manufacturing company. And when you sit back and analyze what they do, they have hardware development, they have software development, and then they have that manufacture, and it's all in the same building. So it's quite fascinating. They don't outsource. In fact, even in the touch panels, we bend the metal for the touch panels.
Wow.
So we don't outsource that, we bend it. So I think when you look at what Lloydtech's, how deep they go into things, it's a very positive thing. One thing I like to say to people, I mean, we were ahead, of course, with the multi-protocol interfaces, but one thing I think is quite surprising is we had opportunity quite a few years ago to do high-level security and encryption. And we had a heavy government contractor come to us and ask us certain questions. And I said to that guy at the time, we don't do that. And he said to me, yes, but I looked at your product and you have the capability already there to do it. So before something called Stuxnet, Lloydtech had high-level security and encryption available on the products, all the way down to the VBox level. So I think they're very opportunistic to identify what needs to be done in a controller and how that carries through. If you think about that security overhead, this is something that we could add in a device, in an existing device. So when you talk about the IoT interface that we let go of this year, actually just now here in September, if you looked at that IoT interface, we didn't change the hardware. We just enabled more things in the hardware. So from a standpoint of hardware design, Lloydtech accounts for quite a lot. The last example I'll bring up that I think is really important, from being an integrator, from doing a lot of programming in the past, one thing I find fascinating is Lloydtech configuration tools are backwards compatible to day one.
Wow.
So you look back 15 years, and our original Lloydtech touch panel was an LCD display. It was literally, it was quarter-inch stainless steel face with a big stainless steel button dial. And this device, you can open up the latest configuration tool for Lloydtech and configure that device. Wow. So that is, think about how many manufacturers have had complete platform changes that they don't have control over. And when you look at it that way, this is why when you take a Lloydtech device, the configuration tools are free, the firmware updates are free, and we don't license the protocols on the hardware. They're just there.
Daryl, is Logitech privately held?
No, not any longer. So we had a company called Delta Electronics come in. Delta Electronics is a multi-billion-dollar company. They make about, I think the data was 28 million power supplies a month they produce.
Wow.
So they're big in the power data center. They make a lot of components for other manufacturers, drives. They do solar. They make EV charging stations. They supply to customers such as Microsoft, Apple, Tesla. So that's Delta Electronics, and they saw a need to horizontally tie together all their subsystems. So of course they tried to look for the best company to do that and stumbled into Logitech.
Nice.
So yeah, so we're part of the Delta Electronics group, but they just flat out let Logitech do their thing.
You know, that's such a good thing, because a lot of times when companies get bought, you know, they can mess up a good thing. So that's very encouraging to hear. And you know, dude, I got to tell you, like I said, we handle you guys, and we say that, you know, in terms of being a distributor, we say you guys are one of the best kept secrets in North America. What do you see the growth being in North America? I mean, in other words, why aren't you guys in every building?
Well, I always like to tell people we kind of are in every building when you start to open up panels, because you'll go into a large stadium, and if you want to have that communicate, you open up the panel and it's brand X controllers, and there's a Logitech router in there.
Right.
So, I mean, we do a lot of that, but the U.S. market has the CSI master format and a little bit separated. The area control is going to take a while to migrate into the U.S. standard. So Logitech saw a need to get into what I call smaller space. And so we've developed well, I call it it's like the American number 2. And we have a new controller called a LEAP 585. And the 585 is kind of a neat thing because it's a unitary and VAV controller. So what happens is you have a controller that can be used for rooftops, heat pumps, unit vents, things like this, small unitary equipment. And when you want to turn it into a VAV, it snaps on a DIN rail actuator kit, and we have a communicating smart actuator that plugs into it. So now I have a small VAV box controller and also a unitary controller. So the idea is that the contractors can stock one device, single device that covers all unitary. When they need to make it VAV, they snap it in the VAV. It's very compact. Logitech design is very well done, so you get a lot of I/O in a small space. And the 585 delivers that. It is multilingual. It has the ability for custom HTML5 graphics, a web server. It even has a BACnet MSTP IP router in it, so if you need to go backwards or forwards in technology, you have an opportunity to do that. So that controller hit the market also in September, and you're going to see it in distribution soon. And we feel that this finds that niche to the light commercial Division 23 HVAC guy. The device also has optional IoT interface. So if you do have the IoT things that you would like to interface to your standard unitary or VAV box controller, it's there available for you.
Sweet. And plus you got the security built into it.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking at this thing right now, and I can't believe it. That is a super designed product. And so it comes, I/O controller has 6 universal inputs, 2 analog outputs, 5 digital outputs, 5 times triac at 0.5 amps, and 1 pressure sensor. I mean, that's got to cost a lot of money. How much is it? I mean,
no, that's not all that's in there, because you have an RS-485 port and a BACnet router.
Yeah,
and then you have
I can't believe it.
And wait a minute, you have a Belimo MP bus. So
nice.
You can have up to 4 smart Belimo type actuators added to that. So
I was wondering when that MP bus was going to come around here. You guys have been working. These Europeans, they're light year ahead of us. They've already been thinking about things in a very, very interesting way. Because we were over at a European global meeting, and we saw that MP bus for the first time. And I wondered, where is this thing going to pop up? How is this interesting communication protocol going to manifest itself in the building space? Because it's there, but it's not being used. But let's go back to this. Say the controller name again, because it's new to me. So it's LIOB.
Yeah, and we say LIAB, so it's a LIAB 585.
LIAB L585. That's pretty cool. Okay.
So Daryl, has anybody in the U.S. ordered any of those yet?
Yes, actually, quite a few. Yeah, so we're as of now I think we're up over the 1,000 mark on a freshly introduced controller.
Okay, well, hopefully we have already ordered some. If we haven't, call on Monday. We will get some on order because that's a cool thing.
We already had that discussion, and yes, we're on the way. So
okay, good.
There's more features on this device, and this is it's an interesting thing. Just even too, you notice the analog outputs. We had to squeeze this down. It was very important for us on this device to get the USB ports, because with the USB ports you can add N-Ocean. You can also add Wi-Fi and then do Wi-Fi mesh if you don't want to do the wired communication. So compared to what I would call a sister device was the LIAB 584, we had to saw off a few analog outputs. The analog outputs are also 0 to 12 volt, by the way. So, and the 12 volt is, to me, critically important because it allows you to pull in a relay where on a typical 0 to 10 volt you can't. So
that's right.
You can also do neat things with Logitech I/O. For instance, on the outputs, you can, in the configuration of the device without programming, set interlocks. So if you had interlocked I/O, one's on, one's off, things like this you can do in a Logitech controller. Other controllers, you need to put these types of things in programming. For Logitech, that's something that we put in configuration. So
it sounds like you guys are very conscious of having a low installed cost. It sounds like you're really thinking in terms of how can we reduce the cost of programming the job and installing it.
You will find the cost of the 585 is extremely competitive device. So what we wanted to do is give you all the IP functionality, all the independence of graphics and putting things together, and make it a competitive price. When you think about conventional BAS, typically to visualize devices, especially in a small system, you need to buy a middleware box of some sort. So when you think about it, you have a sensor level, you have a controller level, you have some mid-level controller, and then you might have a system server or supervisor. And Logitech really takes this middle two levels, the controller and this mid-level supervisor, and we make it in one device. I literally can have enough graphic capability in a LIAB 585 that runs your VAV or your water source heat pump or your rooftop to visualize an entire building's worth of graphics. Wow. So if you're going to take a small VAV system or maybe a strip mall with 5 to 10 rooftops, literally there is no mid-level device you need for IP connectivity. You can have not only one graphical project, you can have many. I can take the same graphical project and put it in all the controllers. So it's this ability to move the graphics around and have dedicated graphics for phone, graphic for tablet. It doesn't matter. You have all this functionality and flexibility, and this is where I think Logitech will turn some heads when you can go put in one boiler plant, one VAV, and it has graphical access to it. That's amazing. When I can put 5 of them together with a rooftop controller and have a VVT system without a mid-level controller, that's fantastic. No extra charge.
No, it is for sure. What about analytics, Daryl? Does it easily set up in the graphical stuff?
Yeah, we have some very interesting things for data gathering and diagnostics. I always challenge anybody, and the challenge can go out here publicly. If you can fill up and outprogram a 585 controller for its intended purpose of unitary and VAV, let me know because you're one special person. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We have thousands of data points in there and a lot of memory. A standard Logitech controller, a small one, has 4 million trend entries possible. So with the 4 million trend entries, we also have something called historical filters. And historical filters are fantastic because let's say I am attaching a meter to an input. And the meter is pulsing every 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes, I've got something going on, and I'll ask the question, what data do you really want from a meter? Do you want to sit there and look at 15 minutes all the time? Probably not. What you want is your daily total, your weekly total, your monthly total. Well, historical filters allows you to do that within our controller. So instead of having an analytics package grinding through 15 minutes times 24 hours a day times 7 days times 30 days for the month, the Logitech controller can do it within its own controller and give anybody to analyze one data point. So we do a lot of things on the data gathering side, and with the program capacity and the 61499 interface, we can enact any sort of query on a very large network in a very short period of time. So an analytics package enacts queries into a database. We can enact queries directly into running devices with very large data repositories. So,
See, you know, this is really good stuff, and I'm enormously impressed. But for our community, we need to continually stress the architecture and whatever. So you've made a very good case for the controller itself, but in the hierarchy, now with the graphical capabilities, where would this be in a typical BAS system, like in the specification? In other words, are we saying that this goes into the supervisory or to a supervisor? Where do you see this on an architectural level of deployment?
well, it's a hybrid. It definitely is a hybrid device. So in a smaller system, it is everything. If you're putting your specifications into a larger project, then I think you go the route where you can save the mid-level controller, a flat IP architecture, and I see that you still have a supervisor. There's many reasons to have a supervisor something, or in the case of modern building automation networks, you have many things. Think about this. I have an IP pipeline directly to individual devices. There is no pass-through. There's no limited serial bus for data. So I can have multiple things. I can have an analytics package special. I can have an enterprise system. I can have a generalized BAS system. All of these systems can be accessing data from a Loitech device, and they can be doing it BACnet. They can do it LawnWorks. They can do it Modbus TCP. They can do it secure OPC, UA. They can do it all simultaneously. They could use web services and attach to a device. They can enable IoT interfaces and start working that way. So you just need the controller that can deliver data at a high data rate, and that's never been a Loitech problem. Deliver data at a very high rate.
Nice.
Well, I think you got a game changer here. You know, and I'll tell you, and again, on your site, so I'm kind of cherry picking here, but you do have something else that is very important that we need to talk about before we start buying these things here, because I think this say that controller name again, Liab 585, Liab, so like a LE, like Liab. I want to make sure I say this right.
Shriver from.
Yes. So in European, actually also in Latin culture, the I sounds like an E. So Liab, Loitech I/O bus, actually it stands for. But
there we go. That's what I needed to hear. Loitech I/O bus. Well, I lived in Germany 9 years, and I'm familiar with that E. It used to get me all the time. But the thing I want to transition to, or we need to transition to, because you got another really exciting product that I think is a game changer too, and that's your Dolly lighting control. And some of the concepts that we were able to get from you previously. Talk about the Dolly lighting control and where that's going to go, and how you see that fit into the North American market now.
Yeah, so Dolly is it's a protocol like BACnet, and it's very easy to wire. I think it's very hard to make a mistake wiring a Dolly network. And Dolly has been very popular in the European community for well over a decade. And so what happens in Europe is you order your fixtures Dolly, and you have a controller talk to them. And it's very simple. I can run to whatever's next in Dolly. So I run to a fixture, I can run to a multi-sensor, I can run to a button coupler on the wall, and keep on going. And since I have such a high-level digital network, and the HVAC community will understand control networks, since I have a control network like this, I can then very quickly and rapidly reassign lighting groups, move things around, enact sequences. What's very nice about the Loitech Dolly controller is we go directly to BACnet from that controller. So we have BACnet alarming, scheduling, trending. You can put custom graphics in the device at that point. You do not need software to configure that device. You can configure it from the web server of the device. We also allow interface on the infrared ports of our multi-sensors to accept RC5 protocol. That probably doesn't mean anything to you. But if I told you you can buy a $20 Apple remote and use it on your lighting control system, that might be helpful. And that's true. So that's RC5 protocol. So you can interface other devices into a Loitech system and then go to Dolly. What's also nice about Dolly is when we talk about open protocols for lighting control, down to the level of a fixture, an LED, or a ballast, Dolly is the only open protocol for lighting. That's it. So at this point in time, people talk a lot of technologies for lighting, but if you want one that's an open protocol that allows a multi-vendor installation, Dolly is really your only choice at this point in time. So I know there's a lot of talk about Bluetooth and PoE technologies, but they don't have a carrier or protocol that's open that allows for a very good multi-vendor installation. The other thing about a Loitec system, when you start to use Loitec multi-masters, is it's very linear on the cost structure. So I have the cost, and then I have the number of devices, and the Loitec cost structure is very linear. And other systems tend to jump up because they need an aggregation box or room controllers, and the cost gets really jagged. And a Loitec device is very simple. You have X number of Dali devices in a Dali channel, which is 64. You exceed that, you need another channel of Dali. And you just keep going up like this. And it's very simple to bid and install a lighting control system with Loitec. Our competition visited us at the Light Fair booth, and we got elegant out of them as far as the description of how easy this thing is to use. So literally within minutes, and we got something going on out in the street here. Hopefully it's not filtering in badly.
We can't hear it. It's all
okay.
good.
Yeah, everybody's excited in Costa Rica today.
Because they see you on TV and they're going, man, who's that guy? Is that?
Yeah, well, you never know. So, at any rate, getting back to the Dali, I think it's a very interesting. It's a very interesting way to put together a lighting system. Within minutes, you can have occupancy control, constant light control. The U.S. term is daylight harvesting. You can also do tunable white, or another term for that is circadian rhythm lighting. So when you start to do color control with the tunable whites, if you read the studies, Dali saves a lot of money. So if I take a lighting system and I go from regular lights to LEDs, I'm at least saving 65%.
To revisit let's go back to the tunable lighting concept, because this lighting now has become probably, now that the metrics are out there. So I'm going to assume that in Europe, the lighting metrics have already established themselves. There's no question about it that when you have control over the lighting, you're going to get greater productivity, better results in the classroom. Yeah. Better, faster results in the hospitals and care centers where is circadian rhythm, this tunable lighting thing. So talk about the metric real quick, because right now with our engineering community in North America, they're still, I don't say they're downing Thomas's, but they still haven't bought big into it. They still don't integrate lighting into our section 23 because it's on its electrical side. And so we have to do presentation after presentation, and everyone was harumph when they hear this thing about the scenarios of lighting and how important they are. So when we hear this concept that you're bringing and the impact, please just review a little bit of the metrics and how you know for certain that this is critical in a building.
Well, there's two reasons. Well, one is just people naturally and how they function in a day. I mean, there's many studies on how people function in a day that are out there for decades. But in recent studies, they've been now saying, hey, we're going to artificially imitate that in a building environment. So the studies prove that, yes, there's productivity increases, but it's something I would describe as soft, meaning I can change a ballast to LED and it's going to save X, and I can read the KW reading. But when we talk about the tunable white, it is under the subject of subjective to an extent. So you can't get a hard line to say that everybody's going to react exactly the same way to tunable white, but we know that everybody does react to tunable white, and there are improvements to it. So I think the bigger hurdle actually currently in the US is there's lack of product. So if I want to buy a tunable white office fixture, a 2x2 LED lay-in, this is extremely difficult right now in the US market. And I anticipate that this starts to change now. In fact, I give it 12 to 18 months. And I think this is going to be a more standard application. So, and if also you're if you're an engineer, it goes back to what I started on in my discussion. If I'm going to go on something very concrete, I'm going to select going from a ballast to an LED, save about 65%, and then I know factually from studies and actual KW usage that I can save up to 65% more if I fully integrate that LED light into daylight harvesting, occupancy control, and advanced scheduling. So now all of a sudden I look at this is an overall reduction, and you can see case studies on our website of 85, 90% reduction in overall KW usage. And if you're an electrical designer, you're good with that, you know? Sure. But the tunable white, this is talking about productivity in an office, and the cost factor for that is shifted. So I think that is something that distributors, contractors, people that understand the fixture operation need to communicate to a building owner. But it's not something that a building owner would see in the cost of the controller when they implement the project. It's not something the building owner sees in the energy reduction. It's a productivity thing after that people are in the building.
That's why we're. I don't say we're getting pushback, but yeah, this is the kind of intelligent conversation we need to have. Time and time again, and the. We were at the AHR show, a breakout that Ken St. Clair did from Automated Buildings, and we had a very interesting discussion about the 330, 300, the metrics that you have $3 it costs you per square foot for energy. And if you save somebody a portion of that, you save them $1. Okay, great. That's still significant. The next metric is the 30 that, it costs you so much to put the furniture in there, pay the rent, the lease space or whatever, and if you save people money there, that's also great. But the big Apple was the $300 metric, where if you increase the productivity, if you reduce absenteeism, if you make people happy and they renew their tenant leases and whatever, then you're really accessing it. See, and you're hitting on something so important too, is that we're seeing this daylight harvesting. We're actually in North America, we're starting to get a hold of the blinds, and we're starting to see how you can really make a total room automation possible, where you can either make a decision, is it wiser to take the outside lighting or close the blinds and bring, because you can bring on the air conditioning, I mean, the heat loads and stuff like that. But if you let automate, the AI and the algorithms take care of it, all you got to do is put the stuff in and let these things go to work. It sounds like Lloydtech has an incredible future here, because Dolly is kind of new to North America. The KNX is new, and we're starting to really see the importance of it now because it's emerging in specifications. But what is like when you say distributors and contractors, where when you go into influence a building owner after the fact, it's kind of bad. But if anybody has LED out there, then they would be a good potential Lloydtech retrofit.
Well, it depends actually, because there's in fixture design, there is what I would call like quick LED, and this is a rather limited LED with a rather limited LED driver, and this is something that I would call the dead end or tiered type of method. And you touched on this actually. You can go in with an LED retrofit, LED non-dimmable, and you're going to, let's say, stuck at 45%, and that building goes nowhere further. But if you go into a building with fixture design that's a little more intelligent or a higher quality fixture, you introduce the dimming and other qualities or the two-color LEDs, and all of a sudden you have tunable white control. So it has to be a conscious decision in advance. And it's a difficult discussion also from an owner perspective when you're a building owner, and my building is probably most dependent on who pays. For instance, if it's $1 per square foot and the systems are on the customer's sub-panel, does the building owner care about tunable white, and does he care that the guy's running his VRF 24/7? He doesn't care, but the building owner that owns and manages the energy in the building, he might have a different thought. So somewhere there's got to be a little bit of a bridge here, especially in the lighting, between those two types of real estate, where somebody can come back and say, no, really, you should have a building performance specification regardless of your building style to market. And I think the costs on this will start to dive. Right now in Europe, I mean, you buy Dolly, it is the price of 0 to 10 or less. So where I have even sourced Dolly drivers, dimmable Dolly drivers, for our lighting demos in the office, and I can tell you the cost of the driver was $14.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but if you want to buy a driver in a light in the North American market, they see the energy savings of Dolly, and there's a premium, I think, that needs a volume adjustment where people start to say, no, we definitely want a communicating light system, and this should be standard. And when we see that, then we're going to see the cost structure come down.
Well, we see Title 24. California is leading the way, and in many ways, that's the conversation. It's migrating, from west to Central America or center of the United States, and then to finally certain parts of the East. But the universities are picking up on it. Hospitals are. Some of the big end users are smart enough, and they know that's important. But we actually saw a program out there in California where they went out and they recorded the lighting for the day, a beautiful California day, in Los Angeles or around the suburbs somewhere. And they had the ability to take that back inside and feed that into their their IP computer network, and it produced that lighting. It produced the outside lighting inside of the building, and the robustness of that. What that did to the people's productivity is extraordinary. I know you can say, I like the word the soft versus hard, or some of it's subjective, because we did have some people in this breakout that we were talking about, I referred to earlier at the HR, where they didn't buy it. They said that this is all kind of voodoo, and whatever. But I think the most critical thing I learned with circadian rhythm was what they did with chickens, and how they were able to hatch eggs in 20 hours and 18 hours instead of 24 by fooling the chickens into the day and the night, instead of being 12 and 12 or whatever. We see another really critical application in the marijuana facilities. It's a booming industry here in the States now. The medicinal marijuana plants in lighting, still, as much as they talk about, is still hard as heck to really maximize the growth of this marijuana plant at the right time. It's a function of all, the humidity and lighting or whatever. But it sounds to me like when we get this tunable lighting thing into our sweet spot, into the mainstream, we're going to do everybody a favor.
Be happier, man.
Well,
you guys in the Northeast can't be grumpy anymore in Seattle because it's gray outside.
Hey, listen, I'll tell you what,
Eric, you hit that on the head, because where are you vacation? You vacation somewhere sunny.
Exactly.
I don't think anybody goes to rain vacations. That's not a popular destination.
Unless you're fishing or something, Alaska or something.
Well, Daryl, listen, I tell you what, we hopefully will get you back on the show again. I want to throw something out to our community because, and Daryl, I want to ask you, and you can totally decline if you want to. Kenny and I have got this sort of live streaming down. Would love to maybe have you come to Atlanta to our studio, and maybe we could do like a live stream training, and we'll promote it in advance so people can get on all across the world and check that out. So if you're interested in that, or interested in more information about Daryl's product, just reach out in comments, and we'll reach back out to you. But let us know if that online sort of live stream training or presentations would be something of use to you. I've had the good fortune to do that, and you're good at it.
Yeah, we're ready to go for that. We can do that. Just one thing I would like to point out also on the Loitech website, if you do get an Elvis and you're starting to work with it or a similar device, we try to break down our video snippets to about 2 to 4 minutes. So we try to break it down. How do I do a schedule? How do I scan this? How do I put buttons on the screen? Things like this. So we do have that, but I'd be more than happy to come down to Atlanta, spend some time down there, and we can do some live. Loitech is, if you see Loitech at a demonstration, we're live. There's no smoke. There's no mirrors.
Right.
Everything we have at a show is always running full.
Yeah.
So
I know. And again, we'll put a link to where we saw you at AHR last time. What is the website, best website for people to get those videos and stuff?
Yeah, Loitech.com, Loytec.
Well, I'm on there right now, and I'll tell you what, it is an impressive website, and I'm on the case studies, and just to give the Control Trends community just a tip of the iceberg, there has been some very large jobs around the world, and Vienna, Copenhagen, China, but also the United States. We have the city of Chandler, City Hall, Arizona. So I think what we're going to see here is we're going to see a greater market penetration from Loitech, just simply because the word of mouth is how you guys have gone to business now. Taking a step forward in marketing, Daryl, I think you can get real busy. You're going to need a couple. You're going to need a couple more Daryls if you're going to really service this North American market, because we know that there's 80% of the buildings out there are underserviced. We know for just absolute certainty that the Department of Energy, we get a nice link there. They keep providing us, they encourage us to stimulate our industry, to stimulate contractors, to stimulate business owners. People that own these things are paying money, and we drive by and we see lights on. We have this terrible thing called light litter, where we see it like if it was running water coming out of a fire hydrant, everybody called the police or the fire department and complain, or if it was a fire, certainly the fire department would come. But if it's lights on, nobody seems to give a darn. Right. So we applaud every effort being made out there by manufacturers to make this as simple and as people-proof as possible. So that the sensors turn things off, and we get maximum efficiencies, because we're not having any more power stations built. We need to take our smart grid and really and truly squeeze the sponge of the waste that we've got going on, and these kind of products are going to do it. And so we applaud Loitech, and we're looking for you to be very successful in the North American market.
All right. Well, Kenny, I tell you what, man, well said. Daryl Clayson, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I echo what Kenny said. Very excited about what you guys are going to be up to. Want to thank you guys. Loitech is a Control Trends Award sponsor. So that means you guys are going to be in Atlanta at the Control Trends Awards as well as at AHR. So if you want to meet Daryl and the team from Lloyd Tech, you got 2 opportunities in Atlanta coming up in early 2019. So Daryl, man, thanks again. Appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Man, great stuff from Daryl, and
Sure
great things from Lloyd Tech. My buddy had another really interesting post. How about telling us about
it? This is a 30,000-foot post on cybersecurity. It says, "For whom it may cybersecurity concern." So play on "for whom the bell tolls." This is an important post because we need to get keep constantly agitating ourselves about cybersecurity. So the NIST. NIST is helping us by creating a methodology for determining forensic data requirements for detecting hypervisor attacks. So NIST is releasing a draft, an internal report. And again, you wonder how germane this is to the Control Trends community on a day-to-day basis. But after I read this, I was learning some new words like a hypervisor, which of course probably come from
that's what I am, a hypervisor, right? I'm gonna hype you up.
You're a hyperventilator. No, you're a hypervisor too. But anyhow, the objective is to determine the evidence coverage for detecting and reconstructing those attacks and subsequently identifying the techniques required to gather missing evidence. The methodologies outlined in this document can assist cloud providers in enhancing the security of their virtualized infrastructure and take proactive steps towards preventing such attacks on their operating environment in the future. Now, the reason why I put this into the post and the reason why I think it's relevant is we are now in the cloud environment. We were talking, the cloud, and we had the fog, we have the edge, the fog, then the cloud, and so many people are providing cloud services. And, it's just a matter of time for everybody is going to have, some part of their life is going to be dependent on this cloud in the sky, this data, collection and sorting and tabulator. We've got some great things for next week when we talk about some of the things we're talking about, voice activation and how it's going to reduce the friction and how that's going to create more and more intelligence and data. And then we got motion detection and video coming in too. Video went quiet for a while in our industry, but now they're saying that that's the future. The new future in our business is going to be video, because if you have video, you perhaps have the best of all worlds. You've got the ability to incorporate thermal detection. You got the ability for motion, movement, zoning, actual, placement.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think that's a great theory, but conceptually, I kind of wonder how many of our good friends and millennials are going to want video cameras watching them work and watching what they do.
Well, they've got a good answer for that, because it doesn't. It's like the ability to anonymize data. In other words, it doesn't have anything to do with the person's face. It has more importance to do. They can do it, and there is a great outcry. In fact, if you go back to the Automated Buildings September edition, and I'm bringing it up right now, the guy that did one of the editorials, his information on there, they talk about is it really necessary to worry about being on camera 24/7 in certain areas? Well, the way they do it is they don't do the facial recognition to know who actually is there, other than the fact there is somebody there. So they depersonalize the data. Now,
yeah. You know what, Kenny, this reminds me of. Let me tell you this. Okay, my wife, who I love dearly, found this great app she wanted me to put on my phone, and the app was basically, we put it on our phones, and I'll know where you are 24/7, and you'll know where I am 24/7. So
bad idea.
We never have to communicate where we are, because we'll automatically know, because we can see it on the phone.
Right.
Yeah. I got that installed. Not.
You did. Anyhow, going back to the cybersecurity post.
I think we got to have Ken Sinclair talk about the whole video thing. We'll get him. I think we got him on in a week or so.
I'm just reading these reports.
Just the facts, man.
And it came out of this thing here. It's what's going down in the voice tech landscape, what's going down in the video world, and I'm telling you,
that's some video hyperventilator trying to promote cameras. Hypervisor.
Has you ever heard of a hypervisor before? See?
Yeah, that's a great word. Roger Rebanak, who's one of the greatest salespeople I know, couldn't even sell video for all that stuff. Nobody's going to want that. It's like, come on, what about my privacy? Anonymize my face.
You don't have any privacy, man.
Let's buy a camera that automatically deletes the face. We could charge more money for that, right?
you know, you don't. Okay, first of all, I have the right to contradict myself. Right? Who said Walt Whitman? You know, he said that, you know, some of the British poets were criticizing Walt Whitman because he had changed his mind on a couple of his, you know, what he liked and didn't like about, you know, poetry. And he said, I have the right to change my mind. You know, so anyhow, with the push of technology, the trends that we're doing, you know, essentially many times we're just kind of just passing on the latest and greatest statistics, the latest and greatest reports on what technologies are coming out with the most investments, you know.
Yeah, I got
and,
you.
it stemmed partially from Ken St. Clair, a comment we had with him way back when they were talking about the amount of money involved in data, you know, the trillions of dollars, you know, I mean, it went from billions to trillions. And, you know, we have a little story about how long it takes you to spend $1 trillion, you know. If you spend $1 million a day and you spend $360 million a year, it would take you 700 years to spend $1 trillion.
I'm glad we only got a couple of $1 trillion in debt. I'm feeling better about that now. So, all right, Big Dog. Well, listen, you definitely check that cybersecurity post out. And I tell you what, Kenny, with that, my wife knows where I am on the phone, so I'm getting called. I got to go. But no, with that, special thanks to our guest this week, Daryl Clayson from Lloyd Tech. Be sure to check those guys out. We really appreciate Daryl taking some time from Costa Rica to touch base with us. Appreciate the man, the myth, the legend, taking time away from trying to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers up to talk to the Control Trends community. So with that, remember, be bold, stay in control, and be relevant.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed. And he smiles.
It hurt too.